It's a bit dark there as we watch this, but there is an official greeting party. And here comes, in fact, the Speaker of the House. It was not the woman seen earlier. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, walking down the steps of her official U.S. government airplane. And in just a second here, we'll set foot on Taiwanese territory. The first time a U.S. Speaker of the House has visited Taiwan since 1997. That was Newt Gingrich at the time, of course, a Republican during the Clinton presidency. Will Ripley, he is in Taipei for us. Tell us how Taiwan has been preparing for this.
Well, they certainly haven't been telling us anything publicly on the record, reportable and that we can cite. But we have been piecing together, speaking with sources, checking information that's been in various local media. So here's how we can kind of. We assume, we believe, based on our reporting, that this is going to go down. So we have the foreign minister, Joseph Wu, who's there greeting Speaker Pelosi right now. And then, she may do a few more informal meet and greets at the airport. But it is, almost 11 o'clock at night here. And so she'll be heading to her hotel. We believe it's a hotel right near Taipei 101, which, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, has been lit up with a welcome message saying that Taiwan loves the U.S. And then also saying Speaker Pelosi. That would be the most public demonstration that we've seen. Welcoming the speaker. Other than that, it's been radio silence from the president's office on down. Not even reporter questions are being answered by the Ministry of Defense. It was Chinese state media, unusually, that talked about the Chinese planes that may have been flying towards the median, the dividing line on the Taiwan Strait. A line that, by the way, China has never agreed to recognize. This is they don't think they can fly anywhere they want. They think that Taiwan is a province of their country, even though the communist rulers have never controlled it. But yet you have now Nancy Pelosi, one of the highest level officials to visit, as you mentioned, 25 years, very long time since Newt Gingrich back in '97. Second in line to the presidency. She will be meeting with Taiwan's president tomorrow. She will be meeting with members of parliament. And we also assume she might be doing some other meetings with business leaders here as well, because, as you mentioned, the chip manufacturers, the semiconductors. She might visit some, historical sites. If she's going to be spending perhaps a full day here, there's going to be a lot of things that could happen that could make China pretty unhappy. But the big unknown is how are they really going to show that? Are just going to get propaganda videos, which would be in bluster, which is fine. A rhetorical escalation is fine. What nobody wants to see, I think, Jim, is for that to evolve from a rhetorical escalation into an actual confrontation militarily or economically, frankly.
Again, there you see her now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She has arrived, greeted, as Will was saying, by the Taiwanese Foreign Minister, Joseph Wu. We should note this is not an official visit, as it were. They're treating it more like a normal visit, a congressional delegation, of which we should note there have been several, comprising both Democratic and Republican lawmakers in recent months. The difference here is that this is the Speaker of the House, third most powerful, arguably, person in the U.S. government, and that is a fact that Chinese leaders take very seriously, second in line to the presidency. We have Selena Wang in Beijing. Now that this has happened, Selena, have you seen any reaction or heard any reaction from Chinese officials or state media?
Well, we have just heard from state media that there are some PLA fighter jets that are crossing the Taiwan Straits. We have not confirmed how far they're going to take that. Of course, China has been regularly sending warplanes around Taiwan's self-declared air defense zone, so we have not confirmed where that's going to go. Most experts I've been speaking to say we could see a mixture of economic coercion that Will was talking about, as well as potentially diplomatic coercion, including a show of this military force. In the build-up to this moment, some of that also coinciding with celebrations for China's Military Day, we have seen more of these drills happening around China's seas, including in the province that is closest to Taiwan. We've also seen this rhetorical escalation around preparing for war in these military propaganda videos, but most do not believe China would engage in any sort of direct hostile action in response to this visit. But the concern is that with all of the military hardware on the ground, how does that increase the risk of a miscalculation here? The other key questions are the ramifications of this. They're going to last far beyond her actual visit there. How could this increase China's coercion of Taiwan moving forward in the coming years?
And I want to get over to Manu Raju, who's now on Capitol Hill. He's got a new statement in from the speaker. What are you picking up, Manu? Yeah, this is the first time she's actually ever confirmed or talked publicly about this trip to Taiwan. This has been under wraps for some time. She has really refused to even discuss this because of security concerns. And now, in the aftermath of her arrival, she's now explaining why she is, in fact, going to Taiwan, defying the Chinese Communist leadership's demands. She says that the congressional delegation's visit is part of the unwavering commitment to support Taiwan's vibrant democracy. She goes on to talk about how this is part of a broader trip to the region. They're going to Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. They're focused on economic partnership and democratic governance. Because she says that America's solidarity with the 23 million people of Taiwan is more important to now today than ever as the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy. And then she goes on to talk about how their visit is, she defends their visit. She says she says this is in no way in violation with America's policy towards Taiwan, which is a way to push back against the criticism from the Chinese government about this trip, saying that, she says in the statement, our visit is one of several congressional delegations to Taiwan, and it is in no way contradicts long-standing United States policy guided by the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979, the U.S.-China joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. And she goes on to say the United States continues to oppose unilateral efforts to change the status quo. So defending this trip, explaining that it is not, in her view, any breach of U.S. policy in its handling of Taiwan, but explaining why she is there to promote democratic values and to say the United States stands with the people of Taiwan. Kate.
Manu, stick with me as well. Let's get over Kylie Atwood now. She's got more on this. This statement from Pelosi, this declaration, right as she's landing and touching down, Kylie, will be a welcome addition to the conversation from the State Department.
Yeah, that's right. And what she is saying in part in this statement mirrors what we have heard from the Biden administration over the last 24, 48 hours, with officials, including the Secretary of State, making the argument that, look, Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan isn't unprecedented, saying that other members of Congress have visited Taiwan, even a Speaker of the House visited Taiwan, albeit that was 25 years ago, Kate. And the circumstances today are incredibly different. But the Biden administration has been calling on China not to escalate things, with the Secretary of State saying if there is a crisis that's created here, that would be entirely on China. And I also think, Kate, that it's important to realize that this visit by the Speaker of the House isn't happening in a vacuum. And it comes as U.S. intelligence officials have been saying publicly that China has been working hard to be able to militarily take over Taiwan. So while the Biden administration says this one China policy stands, and Speaker Pelosi also said that in her statement, this physical show of support in the context of China trying to build up militarily to take over Taiwan is in and of itself significant.
Yeah, Kylie, thank you so much. Let me get over now to Susan Glasser, a CNN Global Affairs analyst, staff writer for The New Yorkers. Susan, a lot of statements now are going to be issued, a lot is going to be said. What do you see the real impact being of this visit for the U.S., for U.S.-China relations?
Well, look, it's a good question. I mean, one thing is, can you recall that, a similar amount of almost breathless attention being given to a congressional delegation trip, even one by Nancy Pelosi, in recent years, right? What's part of China's threats have backfired in the sense that they've called enormous attention to Pelosi's trip, which was almost certainly part of her intention in the first place, which is to send the message not only to China, but here in the United States as well, that it's both parties in the United States and not just the Republican Party that is dedicated to stopping China's efforts to take over Taiwan and to deny the people of Taiwan their legitimate right to determine their own government and their own future, right? So she has just had enormous visibility for her trip, heightened by the bluster and the threats coming from China. So that's one thing. The other thing, though, is that I fear this may represent essentially a new phase in the ongoing escalation towards what feels scarily like an inevitable crisis over the status of Taiwan, given Xi Jinping's rhetoric.
I was going to ask you about that, because you've said that one China expert actually told you recently that this visit might be Xi Jinping's version of a wag the dog scenario. What do they mean?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, first of all, there's domestic politics even in an autocracy and a single party state as China is. And Xi Jinping is looking toward a very important party congress in the fall, in November, at which his role essentially as the unchallenged leader is to be cemented. And this is a very important moment for him. He wants to essentially send the message that he's the tough guy on Taiwan and provoking a crisis over this visit, escalating this into more of a confrontation, using it as a cover potentially to take more concrete actions. I think that's the thing that's very worrisome. So I do think that there are politics on both sides of this, but the real worry is that we're just hurtling down the road toward a confrontation because she has used maximalist rhetoric about Taiwan, not dissimilar, frankly, from the rhetoric that you've heard from Vladimir Putin denying Ukraine's right to exist as an independent country. That is also the view that Xi Jinping takes toward Taiwan, that it does not have the right to exist independent of China.